That's better. Okay. Shiviti Adonai Lenegdita mi Yimimini Valemo Lachen Samach Livi Ve'agel kevodi Af vesari Yishkon aveta Ki lo tazov nafshi lishon No titen chasid halirot shachar Todieni Orach Hayim Orach Hayim Sova Simachot Yet panecha nimhot b'mincha netzach Shiviti Adonai lenegdita mi I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice, my being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life, your presence brings fullness of joy, enduring happiness is your gift. O God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Death has taken our beloved Ruthanne. Our friends and family members grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Ruthanne's love, that united all in life and which death cannot sever, for her companionship that was shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought joy and happiness and are now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. For Ruthanne, beloved wife of Jack, whose yahrzeit was the day before her passing of nearly 60 years, mother of Lynn, Leslie, Lee, and Larry, mother-in-law of Heather and Amy, and of Gary, who preceded her in death, grandmother of Sarah, Ben, Connie, Sammy, Michael, Jacob, Justin, Max, and Molly, great-grandmother of Harry, Jack, Cooper, Dorothy, Minnie, and Henry, beloved family member and friend of many. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Continue 23rd Psalm in Hebrew first, and then we'll read together in English. Adonai rohi lo exar bino desheyavitzeni al mei menuchot yenachaleni nafshi yeshover yanheni v'magale tzedek leman shemo gam ki eleh begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi Shiftecha meshantecha hema yenachamuni Taro lefanai shul haneged sorarai Deshan teveshem roshi kosi revaya Achtov v'hesed yudefuni Koyamei hayai V'shavti b'veit Adonai Lehorech yamim. We have the text in English in the pamphlet. We'll read together 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. A woman of valor, who can find? She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. There are many things that remind us of those who are no longer with us. This is a poem about some of those things. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. The beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. We'll now pause for a few moments of personal prayer and silent remembrance as we remember Ruthanne. And now I'd like to call on Sammy to say a few words.
Ruthanne Silverstine was my grandmother. I spent many childhood days and nights wrapped in the warmth and joy of her presence. Our day started at her kitchen table, where she was happy to whip up whatever your heart desired. Whatever your heart desired being one of her many succinct catchphrases that always captured the moment perfectly. Her kitchen table was where my coffee addiction started. I'd have a tiny bit of coffee and a lot of milk and all the sugar I wanted, and she'd read to me from the paper, pass me the comics, and we'd discuss whatever came to our minds. We were both completely unfiltered. I hope you all know the joy of experience a morning like this with a person you love. There's no rush. You come as you are, and you leave caffeinated and ready for anything. After our leisurely breakfast, we'd prepare our costumes for the day. As my cousin Sarah noted, Bama had 4 closets stuffed with clothes and shoes and racks of purses. So Bama and I didn't wear clothes, or outfits. We wore costumes. Mama was a gifted seamstress, so I was lucky to have miniature versions of all of her fabulous feather jackets and printed jumpsuits. She always made me a matching purse and always a matching bow. Then she'd make the same outfit for my doll. After we put on our costumes, we'd be off like two girls to a dance. We'd buzz around town in her black robe with Bama vanity plates, usually stopping at the craft store for miniatures or the latest patterns of whatever we felt like crafting that afternoon. Then it was off to Steinmart or the half-price store to search the sales for something we couldn't live without. We'd have pie for lunch, drop off a costume she was working on at the playhouse, and then our last stop was the grocery store, where we would walk up and down every aisle just so she could brag to every person about her 9 grandkids and their latest accomplishments. She was so good at talking to and befriending strangers that they would always remember her. Usually she did this by telling a funny story about herself, or sometimes your most embarrassing story. One of her favorite stories to tell about herself to complete strangers was about the time her hem of her nightgown got caught in the garage door as it was going up. And you can ask Sarah Mine and Jed, for the rest of that story. That was a typical Bama day. But Bama was an adventurer. Bama always said yes before that was the trendy thing to do. When my Aunt Boo asked her to jump on a plane to go to China where my aunt would adopt our beloved Molly, Bama said yes without hesitation and asking for a plan. Bama told me the story of the pure excitement and joy she had packing her trunk before she went off to Stevens College in Missouri. This was in 1947. In 1947, she jumped, I believe she took a train with a trunk and went somewhere where she knew no one and for a new adventure. She loved college and her roommates, and it's where she learned the importance of women's rights, and it shaped her politics. There wasn't a role, a play, or commercial that Bama turned down. Her last production was The Full Monty. Don't worry, she didn't take off her clothes. And some of our fondest memories as grandkids are at the Des Moines Playhouse or Ingersoll Dinner Theater, whether we were watching her on stage, in the audience next to her, or backstage in the costume room. We were constantly reminded what we already knew, that our Bama was a star. Bama had a contagious energy that was confident and passionate and joyful. She lit up every room she was in and was the life of all parties until the very end. My dad always talks of the cast party she would throw on opening night, where the cast members would stay up all night to read the first review in the morning paper. Visiting her at the Jewish Life Center at the end, she was always the winner of bingo and trivia and quick to gossip with you about her new friends. I remember the many dinners she served at her long table that could always be expanded for surprise guests. It was not unusual that someone laughed so hard at these dinners that they'd spit wine out their nose. I craved the comfort of these meals. Bama would make the meal appear as if there was minimal effort. Her chopped liver, matzo ball soup, cheese blintzes, stuffed cabbage, and noodle kugel are our family's gold standard. We've been in competition over the years to recreate these dishes, but they're never just right. And that's because they weren't made or served in Bama's crowded kitchen, where all were welcome, and the only request was that you laugh easily and are unapologetic about your emotions. Over the last few days, our family has been touched by the many stories of Bama's home. How she cared for people whenever they needed it most, and her door was always open. Bama was a caregiver, a friend, and a life coach to all who walked through her door or called on her in their time of need. In her final years, my Uncle Lee and his wife Amy, and my Aunt Boo cared for my Bama in the same way she would have cared for them. She was never alone, and they made sure she was still connected to us, and we're forever grateful to them for this. I've been thinking the last few days, in the way that death forces you to, about how did Bama do it? She was a full-time working mother of 4 who starred in productions and volunteered. She did it all with a spark that lit up the room. How did she do it? I think Bama hacked life. She figured it out. She figured it out that it's all an act. Life is one big production, And she was the writer, producer, and director. She could play whatever role she wanted, and she chose to play the most joyful, the most loving, the most giving, the most caring role she could come up with. And she made sure to cultivate that joy in others. One last story I want to share. I want to share with you how Mama and I would end our day. We'd have a midnight snack of orange sherbet, and then we'd crawl into bed. She let me sleep with her because, surprise, surprise, I was riddled with anxiety as a child, and I had trouble sleeping. So Mama would tell me to close my eyes, and then she would list everyone who loved me. She would say, I love you, your grandpa loves you, Sadie loves you, your dad loves you, your brother loves you, and on, until I fell asleep, and this brought me great peace. So here it goes. May you rest in peace, Mama, because I love you, Michael loves you, Jacob loves you, Justin loves you, Sarah loves you, Ben loves you, John loves you, Max loves you, Molly loves you. Your legacy and spirit lives on in the confidence and joyful way you encouraged us to live our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Seen lots of notes about Ruthanne over the last couple of days. And everybody says same thing that I remember. Ruthanne was such a sweet person and fun to be around. Ready for any adventure, as Sammy said. She loved the theater. When she wasn't in the plays, she was doing costumes for them. She did it at the Playhouse or for Purim spiels at the temple. She was a regular participant in the life of the Jewish community. Ruthanne enjoyed interacting with people at the Jewish food fair when she was serving food or in sisterhood events. For the Jewish holidays, she made great Jewish food. Being Jewish was important to her. Leslie remembers how meaningful it was when she saw her mom praying for her dad when he was sick. Ruthanne was present for his death and was also there for Florence, Jack's sister. Ruthanne was incredibly strong and brave. She was always enthusiastic, attentive, and supportive. She was married to Jack for over 60 years, and Ruthanne and Jack liked to go to Johnny Betts Club and sit around the piano and sing and have cocktails. Everyone knew Ruthanne, and Jack just had to go along. She and Jack had a wonderful codependent relationship. They needed each other, and both of them lived to be 91. Ruthanne died the day after Jack's yahrzeit. Ruthanne was very proud of the grandkids and talked to everyone about them. And they remember her fondly as well. Saw some of the notes from the grandkids, their memories. And I know Michael said that the memories of driving up to Bama's house are very special, that she created a great environment for the grandkids. You know, Sammy and John both said that Bama's house was always full of happy people who were fun to hang out with. It was like a party, and there was an endless amount of snacks and candy. Ruthanne had a great sense of humor. Lynn recalls that when Sarah was born, her first grandchild, she looked at her and said, "There's always surgery when she's older." I'll tell some of the Sarah stories. Sarah remembers that when she was 4, Ruthanne and Sarah were at Adventureland riding the ride that goes over the park. And she asked Mama for a piece of gum. And Ruthanne handed her a square. And Sarah assumed it was a beige chiclet, but she gave her the same thing she was chewing, which was Nicorette. Sarah kind of liked it. Sarah said that playing Scrabble, Ruthanne taught her all of the dirty words. All of them. All the girls remember that she enjoyed shopping with them. Sarah mentioned that she took her to her first pedicure, sewed her a closet full of frilly dresses, sent her off to grad school with a cozy flowered afghan, quilted for her babies, wrote letters in her finishing school penmanship back and forth with Harry when he was learning to write, and played endless hands of skip-bo, and stood in line outside a West Des Moines Kmart for hours to get her first Cabbage Patch Kid in 1983. Everyone loved to watch Ruthanne in plays. And Sarah said that Auntie Mame was her favorite because Ruthanne was Auntie Mame as far as she was concerned. Glamorous, irreverent, and charming. I won't tell the story of the garage door either, Sammy. In the Jewish tradition, we say, Hu mevin yavin. The one who understands will understand. Molly remembers that growing up, she was aware that she was somewhat spoiled, and one of the reasons was her grandma. Ruthanne was everything you'd hope for in a grandma, Molly said. Her cookie jar was always full. She was constantly working on her latest sewing or knitting project, usually for a grandkid or great-grandkid, and she was unwavering in her support for those she loved. She taught Molly how to bake cookies and made her a wedding dress costume when at 4 years old she wanted to be a bride for Halloween. And Ruthanne went with Leslie to China to adopt her, which is the only time Ruthanne ever left the country. Lee noted that Ruthanne was gregarious, genuine, and unfiltered, and the people loved her for it. You can add me to that list. That's how I remember her, too. I always enjoyed that about her. When we would get ready, when we were practicing for our Purim spiels, I remember just cracking up constantly. So, and Ruthanne commenting about the costumes and the play was a good bit of that. Ruthanne was a lot of fun to be around. She brightened up the room. She left a legacy of love and the love of life, and her family and friends remember her fondly. Ruthanne will be dearly missed. Please join us for Shiva tonight at 6 o'clock Central. We'll be on Zoom. The links are posted online or by email, and I hope you will be able to join us for those. Into your care we entrust the spirit of Ruthanne Silverstine, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures, as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and your glory. Please rise for the El Maleh Rachamim prayer. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamse Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, Im Kedoshim V'Torim, Kezohar HaRaki Amazhirim, Et Nishmat Ruthanne Silverstine, Shel Chalo Olama, Bal Harachamim, Yasti reha beseta knafav lolamim. Vitzro chaim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata. V'tanua v'shalom al mishkava. V'nomar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Ruthanne Silverstine, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. We praise you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in a divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, who causes all of us to die, and who implants immortal life within us. We praise you, O God, judge of truth. Eternal is your might, O God, all life is your gift, great is your power to save. With love you sustain the living, and with great compassion you give life to all. You send help to the falling and healing to the sick. You bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. We praise you, O God, who implants eternal life within us. And now we'll May Ruthanne come to her eternal home in peace. May those who mourn the loss of Ruthanne find comfort in the hope that though the dust returns to the earth as it was, the spirit returns to God who gave it. Death is not the end. Those we love have passed through the gateway of the grave into the peace of life eternal. We know that all of us must tread the same path, though we know not when that hour may come. Let us so live that the coming of that hour may find us unafraid. May our deeds do honor to the memory of our beloved, whom you've taken to yourself. Trusting in your wisdom and loving kindness, we praise your name. We recite Mourner's Kaddish together. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma, Vivra, Hirute, Ve'amlich, Malchute, V'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Ufaye, Dekol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Uvizman Kariv Vimru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mavarach Le'alam Ulalmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yithalal Shemei Dekudisha Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbakata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu yasei shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to all the bereaved among us, and let us say, Amen. And now it's customary for us to put some dirt into the grave as we begin the mourning process. It's a mitzvah to participate in the burial itself. And in our congregation, it is customary for us to do this using the back of the shovel first, symbolizing that though we're participating, we do so some reluctance to very quickly. And then we use the front of the shovel as well, so that we're actually putting dirt into the grave, participating in the burial itself. And I'd like to call the family forward. You can come on both sides here. Put some dirt in. Okay.
This part.
What?
This isn't my favorite tradition.
I had to come from that. I just love the visual. And I know about that.
It's a moo-moo.
Yes, yes. She told me where it happened.
Sorry, that's how we got a garage door opener.
Okay, so we'll finish up our ceremony here. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way, and may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. And we say to all the mourners, may God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. And we'll conclude with the singing of O Say Shalom as we wish peace and wholeness upon our loved one in heaven, loved ones in heaven, and also on us. Wish for peace and wholeness and well-being with O Say Shalom. O Say Shalom Bimromah. O Say Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ve'imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. That concludes our ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks for coming.
And I will see you online at
Thank you.
6 o'clock.
For the shiva.